Stop by Sherwin-Williams and get 30% off select paints and stains August 15th through the 18th. It's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Refresh your home inside and out with colors that make every space feel brand new. From cozy interiors to stunning exteriors, we've got the perfect shade for your next project. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Talk, the monthly conversation where Chris and I talk with one of our previous guests or listeners, or ourselves, and let them tell their story.
Inception.
It's a podcast within a podcast. So this is a very special episode.
Don't spoil it, man. Inception, for anyone who hasn't seen it from 8 years ago.
Oh yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to screw. It's actually 10 years ago.
Good Lord, that makes me feel really old.
Yeah, sorry I've ruined it. So for anyone who this is your first time, this is not our usual audio quality, and that's because Chris and I are in the same room right now. It's exciting. We're never in the same room when we record, and it's a very special episode in multiple ways. It is a very special episode because we have Josh Hallmark here from our Americana /playlist / the Karen and Ellen letters.
In the room with us.
In the room with us. Like, he's physically here. Say words.
It's true, I'm here.
It's amazing.
He's in North Carolina. He came all the way here just to see us.
Yeah, just to record this episode. That's it. So we're really excited that he is here. And also, this is a very special episode, kind of in the sense that, like, there was always, like, that very special episode of Saved by the Bell.
Where Mr. Belding just has a heart-to-heart with the kids.
Right.
Someone's coming out of the closet.
Yeah, we all knew Mr. Belding. We knew it.
Oh my gosh. Well, essentially, this is how these episodes work. So, on the first Monday of every month, hey, that's today, you're going to get one of these episodes in addition to the regular episode on Thursday, so don't worry, that's not going anywhere. We'll be sitting down with folks for a little more serious conversation and just about their individual experiences with mental health and mental illness. And then we continue that conversation over on Patreon as an exclusive episode for those who donate at the $5 level or more. Now, I'm going to say this every time. This is not a paywall. You're going to get the whole story here. But then later on, we're just going to have a little conversation either about it or just to kind of lighten everything up after we have the conversations that are more serious. And that's available over on Patreon. So if you want to be part of that conversation, check out patreon.com/isthisadulting. And you can, you can check that out there. So we're going to dive right in, and I haven't introed our guest because, hey, this week, surprisingly, since he's in the room, it's not Josh Hallmark.
It's your best friend.
It's your best friend, number 2, Chris Grimmett. Chris is going to tell you all a lot that you may not know about him because he's been kind of, what's a good word, vague?
Yeah, I was going to say broad, but I think that's the...
Vague, broad.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the last year and change of this podcast. So we're gonna do this thing. So hey, Chris, what do you want to say? You just want to start talking?
Yeah, I think it's fine. So I'll say a couple things to kind of like start off. For those who are new, there'd be no way you would know this unless you were kind of listening back throughout the entire year. But a lot of times in my mental health check-ins, there have been moments where I'm trying to articulate how I feel, but sometimes the details have to be kind of like super vague, and I've always felt super guilty about it. Not because I didn't want to share, but because a lot of the pain that I'm going to kind of talk about, where a lot of my mental health struggles were born, or like its origin story of Batman. See, I can make comic references. There you go.
You're such a nerd now.
But it's difficult to share some parts of the origin story when it doesn't just involve you.
Right.
When there's been a lot of people that have been a part of it, and unfortunately there's been many people who've played roles in creating the pain that I've had. And so out of respecting them, their stories, and not wanting to make it sound like these are horrible people, I've wanted to honor them by not sharing too much. So, but I'm at a place where it's been a year and a half now. I feel I'm able to share a little bit more because I do think that parts of my story some people will be able to connect with, and I hope that I can be, I just hope that I can maybe not be healing, but maybe you can feel that you're not alone in struggling with some of this stuff. So just know I'll probably preface 1,000 times of just because I don't want anyone to feel like I'm talking bad about them or anything. But so here we go. It started, it really started a long time ago. I have always been a person that has been, for some, uncomfortably open with who I am, and always sharing what is going on. And I first started struggling with feeling like that maybe I was getting a really rough go of, I was getting rough treatment for something I feel like it wasn't merited, if that makes sense. Sometimes of saying, why am I being treated this way when I don't think I'm doing at least something that deserves this level of hostility back? And so it really starts many years ago. It started, and I think, Stephen, you're actually going to be surprised where I'm kind of starting. It started with when me and my wife got engaged.
Whoa.
I won't share tons about this, just out of respect for Kate's family, my family, and everything. But unfortunately, our engagement was not, to put it lightly, it was not the most positive experience. There was a lot of reasons for it, and it wasn't me and Kate. It was we were young, and unfortunately, I think a lot of family members, rightfully so, out of care for us, was nervous because they didn't know what that would look like. They were afraid that, not that we were making a mistake because they knew that we would get together, more of a mistake of, you're young, stress gets in the way, finances get in the way, and it may just not. Both of our parents, they got married very young, and I think there was a lot of hesitance with that. And so unfortunately, it was not as supportive as we were hoping that it would be, unfortunately. And it caused a lot of pain. And from that, I then started having some other people in my life start saying some things about me and Kate that really, really hurt. As I think has been made decently well aware, I'd probably say that my family would kind of almost consider me more of like the loving hippie, not in the way I dress, but in a lot of my views for things, and specifically really, really wanting to be an advocate and ally for just letting women have their voice and their agency as well, and in a world where often that's not the case. And especially someone I had so much respect for, like my wife, or at the time, fiance, some people that were upset because they were upset because the way that we were living kind of made them feel guilty, I think. And who knows? I mean, I probably wasn't always the best person to, and didn't communicate it in the best way, but they started getting angry, and they started saying things that weren't true, accusing me of verbally abusing Kate, which, if anyone knows, I try and spend all my freaking time trying to encourage her, because she beats herself up so much, and she's way kinder and nicer than I ever could be. Everyone always likes her more than me, and so I'm trying to help her realize that. And it really just broke my heart for a lot of reasons, because, I mean, Kate even used to joke around and say, "You're more feminist than I am. I hate that this is happening." And it just really, really broke my heart, because I didn't want anyone to feel that way, and I especially started being anxious of, does Kate feel this way? Am I doing something? Like, when someone starts saying something that is so untrue, you start, but they seem so confident in it, it starts making you think, am I just oblivious? So that's really where it kind of started, what then became, honestly, 5 years worth of doubting myself, and often feeling like I was being met with an unnecessary, I know I said that weird, or pronounced that weird, but like an unnecessary amount of aggression towards me. And so I've done a lot of jobs in my life, unfortunately, for the amount of time I've been around doing full-time work. I got my degree in teaching because I was going to be a teacher, and I became really, really just heartbroken by some of the teachers I was working with the amount of both pessimism, but also just cruelty of some things that they would say about students. Students that were different, students that maybe they weren't on a roll, but it's because they were in really, really shitty places in their lives where they're just trying to get by. And it really broke my heart, and I didn't want to, and it was by no means do I want to speak ill of teachers, because I have more respect for teachers than almost anyone, and I really miss it in some ways, but I just realized that I couldn't be in such a hostile, negative place. And so that's where I ended up going in somewhere else where the irony won't escape the people who are laughing because they kind of know some of the story. But so I kind of made a different swing and started, I went to seminary to be a pastor. And I've been very hesitant about talking about that for this entire year. And there's a lot of reasons why. The majority of the reason is because I've always joked that I feel if you walk into a room and say you're a pastor, the only other person that gets the same type of treatment is if you walk into a room and say like you're a psychiatrist or something, because all of a sudden people's moods change. And rightfully so. I mean, especially with pastors, like there have been so much real pain that people have experienced, and not just out of Christianity, just religion more broadly, that it's amazing how often someone can have been hanging out talking to me for a while, and then all of a sudden someone mentions that I was a pastor, and then they start going back, and one of two things happen. It's really funny. Like either they start apologizing for every curse word they've said and say, you know, I am a 28-year-old man. I have heard a curse word before, and I curse. It's okay. But even more than that, it's interesting, and it does make sense, because I've met so many freaking pastors in my life, or just religious leaders that they like walk up to you, and immediately you feel a weird sense of guilt and the need to explain something. And there are so many times where people have heard that, and all of a sudden they start saying, "Well, yeah, I was reading the Bible probably a couple of weeks ago," and it's like, okay, it's fine. like this is not confession, I promise you. Like I'm just asking for a burger and fries. Like you don't have to tell me the last 3 times you've gone to church. It's okay. And so, rightfully so, I've been really hesitant because I wanted people to know what my heart was. Then when they hear that I was a pastor, that can help better inform who I am and why I've become the type of person that I am, instead of they hear I'm a pastor and then they start making, in many cases, justifiable assumptions about what I believe. And believe me, I get it. I mean, if you've had awkward conversations with pastors before, or religious leaders, as a person that was there and had to be in the room with other pastors all the time, it can suck really bad. So I went to seminary, and it was my second year there. It's a 3-year like master's program. So it's my second year at Duke, and I ended up taking an internship is the best way of kind of describing it. I'm at a church about an hour away, which, I mean, from just a driving standpoint, that sucked. Doing 2 times a week, you're in grad school, and I already felt overwhelmed as is, because I feel even awkward saying this, but so I went to Duke. That doesn't mean I'm super smart. That means that I was super anxious because everyone else was super smart, and I just happened to somehow slip through the system. And so I was already super anxious about a lot of this stuff. I didn't feel as confident in my knowledge as so many people who've done all these. They've studied things for years and they can read super fast, and I most certainly cannot read super fast. So I took this job working at this church. And I'll just say this now, but one of the reasons why I've been hesitant is because other people are involved. So I will share certain things without sharing names or things, mainly just out of respect for them. And I'll say it now and I'll probably say it again, that as much pain that's happened over the last couple of years, I do still have truly, truly genuine love for certain people that that honestly, without them, I would not have been able to make it as long as I did. So I don't want it to feel like I'm bad-mouthing. But, so I was working in this church, and unfortunately, it was a very, very toxic, unhealthy situation. Shocker. It's interesting. I think that what I found so unique about a church community compared to others is this is a place where people are told that they can be accepted for who they are. And now I know there's a lot of, there's not just one asterisk on that, there's quite a few. But in theory, that's what is supposed to happen in practice. And so people, I mean, that's a pretty transformative thing to hear. And so then when people go there, sometimes they feel they don't have power or agency in other places. And so unfortunately, they then go to the place where they feel like they have a little power and autonomy. Mm-hmm. And then they take advantage of it and exploit people by creating like cliques, creating drama, creating gossip, and just saying really, really horrible things. And not just about like groups of people, about like the freaking person they're in a Sunday school room with, of just like, you were just with them 2 minutes ago. How could you say that horrible thing about them or about their daughter or about so-and-so? So I was in this situation, and the best way to describe it is this was an entire church staff, right, that was there. The entire church staff ended up leaving this church, and none of them are in ministry anymore. To give you like an idea
so
of
it was a really good situation.
Yeah, to give you an idea of the complexity of the situation, where people don't like change. And I get that. And I think that sometimes when people are fearful of change, I mean, we see this in our world all the time, in our culture, and especially in the US right now. When people fear change, sometimes they act out. You hope they act out in ways of being honest about how they're feeling, but often they don't know how to process their feelings, and so it ends up being aggressive. And that's definitely what happened in this situation. I experienced significant emotional and verbal, and I'm going to use this word, and I use it very cautiously because I almost feel like I'm dishonoring people who I don't want to take away the word that they deserve to use, but I'll just say it because my counselor said I should be able to use it, but I still feel uncomfortable. But a lot of abuse. To just give you like examples, one of the examples I most remember is, this happened more than once, by the way. I'd be standing in the back, the church service was about to start, and someone would come up like an inch from my face, and they would say something to the effect of, like, as the church bells are ringing, mind you. So it's like, the thing's about to start at 11, it's 10:59. And they would say something to the effect of like, you know that we hate you, and you're like, and that there's no reason why you should be here. You're actively ruining our church. And then they say, we'll see you inside, Pastor. And they'd walk in as the organ's playing, and you're like, well, I don't have time to emotionally process all of that just happened. Like, it was that type of experience. I would get really hurtful text, really just, and both aggressive, but also a lot of passive aggressive things. Like, I was at this church for an entire year, and 2 weeks before I left, there were people who didn't know that I was traveling an hour away. Some people didn't know that I was married, even though Kate would come every week. They wouldn't know her name. Stuff of just, it's not just simply, you're kind of being a douchebag to me. It's to not even learn certain facts about a person feels like you actively don't really care to be invested in their lives. And that hurts too, especially when you've tried to do everything you can to care for people. Mm-hmm. So I took that year off because things were really bad. That's where I first started experiencing my moments of anxiety. That's where, as Stephen can acknowledge, that's where I kind of went 0 dark 30. Like, he stopped hearing from me. Mm-hmm. And that's because everyone stopped hearing from me. I took that final year at seminary to figure out, can I do this? I don't know. Because I knew that I wanted to be, the thing that made me become religious in the first place was the transformative idea that everyone belongs, that everyone deserves not just respect, but to be honored. You know, I mean, I feel like that's, I know that might be a loaded word, but I mean that as just to truly see each other as extended family, and to fight for injustices in this world for everyone who's being taken advantage of, anyone who's marginalized. Like that's why I got into, that's why I became religious myself. I'd always grown up religious, but I mean, I would say that in quotations in some ways. It really wasn't until college where I started taking that seriously for myself. So I was like, what do I do? This was a horrible experience. I started dealing with anxiety in ways I hadn't done before. I wasn't sleeping. I started losing weight unexplainably without changing my diet or exercise. And then the part that really freaked me out was this was my first panic attack I had. And it was also the biggest panic attack I'd ever had, because so I had been struggling to eat. And when I mean eat, not because I was feeling sick, my throat was swelling up. I didn't know that can happen from anxiety. It's amazing how the body can respond to stress. My throat was swelling up. I physically could not swallow food. And that was scary. So I had to go to the hospital a couple times. This is like in the same week. I had to have like an emergency endoscopy where they like put you to sleep and do this huge tube down your throat to try and figure out what's going on. Like all this type of things were going, and I had no idea what was going on. I was nervous. I was resting. I was taking time to like figure out what's going on. I'm by myself at the house because Kate was still having to work that day. I went to go and eat the only thing I was allowed to eat for a few days, and that was chicken broth, which let me just let you know, that's a great diet for a few days, especially when you're hypoglycemic. So I just finished that, and I was walking back to lay on the couch, and I was by myself, and all of a sudden, I legitimately, and I apologize for even having to say this, because I know that this will cause anxiety for you, Stephen. So I understand, but like, I mean, you know this story, like, all of a sudden, I legitimately thought I was having a heart attack. My entire, or like a stroke, like, my entire left side of my body went numb, and I collapsed face first. And I lost full feeling in my body for a second, collapsed. Luckily, I'd had my phone in my hand, and I pawed at my phone, and luckily I was able to get a friend of mine who was able to come get me, because I couldn't even hit 911, and he like helped pick me up, get me in, took me straight to the hospital again. I found out later it was a panic attack. And that was the first moment where I think it was a big realization for me. It woke me up when it came to you, Stephen, of just realizing if you don't struggle with anxiety, especially more severe anxiety, like I thought I struggled with it for a while, but until it happens for the first time, you start realizing, oh, there is nothing dramatic about this. Like this was a scary moment of I should not be the age I am and legitimately fear that I may not see my wife soon, and so that was the reality of what I was going through. And so it started being put on this medicine, and and I was gaining weight, I was losing weight. I mean, like the thing that whenever you being on medicine, like and then you're even more insecure about yourself, and it's just causes more anxiety. So I took that year to figure out what I was going to do. I decided I did not want to let one really toxic environment. I don't want to let a toxic environment take away from the deeper values that I believed could help transform our world. You know, I can be optimistic, and so I decided I was going to take this thing because I was graduating. I was going to be a pastor, so I was assigned to 2 churches, and it was more rural type of environment. And again, for preface sake, some truly genuine, loving, incredible people that I still think of and have inspired me in many ways. So I went very cautiously and very, very afraid, because the things that I wanted to do was, one, I wanted to care for people without being screamed at and yelled at. But equally as important, the reality is, like, there's a real stereotype of how people treat pastors' wives. And And there's so much expectation, there's so much burden on that especially after just getting out of a situation where people wouldn't even go as far to learn Kate's name and the things I've been accused of in my past, I really wanted to find a way that I could make her feel not just supported, make her feel like people know her because she's Kate, not because she's my wife. Because there are not many jobs that it's bring your spouse to work day every single day, you know? And so I was really, really intentional about wanting to make sure that she felt like people knew her as her, and then that she could have her own space to be able to continue to grow, and however she wanted to grow. Well, the honeymoon was great for like the literal length of a normal honeymoon, like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And unfortunately, I really do think what made this worse was I ironically was a pastor during the 8 months of what many will probably consider the most controversial time in America, the most controversial election of all time, where there was so many factors that had nothing to do with me, of just people were tense, people did not trust each other and assumed the worst always. And to try and speak into that when a lot of people were using religion however they wanted to was not easy. Especially, I'm a young guy, and I'm preaching to people who many of their grandchildren are older than me. And so there already is a difficulty in feeling the ability to, how do I see you as any, not even authority, but more of like, how do I see you as respect? Like, you have wisdom to give me. And that was a real thing that, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand if your age is an issue. This is why I kind of say it. If I continuously, in our conversation, Josh, kept making jokes saying you need to get a haircut, there's a point where I've joked so much where you say, no, that dude just thinks I need to get a haircut. Like there's a point where there's only so much joking where you start being like, no, this is an actual issue for you.
Even right now, I'm like, are you trying to tell me anything?
No, your hair is beautiful.
Yeah.
If anyone needs a haircut,
experienced this week with me and my anxiety, where I make jokes about him hating me, and he laughs, but I think he's starting to realize that sometimes I'm really scared. So it happens.
If anyone needs a haircut, it's me right now because I'm getting real fuzzy. But anyway, so I knew from the beginning that was already being a concern for people. But then some of the things that I was sharing, I think I was not trying to be controversial. I was really trying to, I heard someone say one time, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. Like, if you don't feel guilty if you don't start feeling nervous or like you need to be held accountable, something in some type of like message, then maybe you need to pay attention again. And so for me, I was just trying to speak into a world where it was nothing but hateful language happening. I was trying to provide unity. I was trying to provide like equal respect. And so the big first thing that happened was, fortunately, a lot of new people were coming to the church, which for me, it wasn't about growth or numbers. It was about people feeling cared for. And especially in a small community I was in, people were coming to the church. The problem was the type of people that were coming made a lot of people feel uncomfortable. Because not everyone was coming in Sunday clothes. Not everyone was clean shaven. Not everyone was necessarily clean. There were people in the community some who really, really loved to drink, but they were also interested in hearing how they could work towards trying to help make this world a better place. There were people who had never felt cared for in their community in their entire life or loved. And that was the case. A lot of that was happening. Particularly, someone that was coming was a same-sex couple. For me, it was a situation where it was one of my greatest moments trying to be a pastor and provide care and compassion for people is also one of the most heartbreaking moments I've ever had. And to realize that these were two incredible men who did more for their parents, did more for the community than I had ever done. They were in their mid-40s. And I legitimately don't think that they had, and by I don't think, I know because he shared this with me, they'd never really been told by someone that they were deserving of love. And in some ways, it can be a really meaningful, honoring thing that you're the one to tell them that. But when you realize you're in your 40s and you've not heard that, like, it just broke my heart. Well, so they started coming to the church. And as I think we've made pretty clear, I am a part of how do I even say this? My theology is one in which I am not just accepting, I am fully supportive of same-sex, or not just same-sex couples, but the LGBTQ community. And that was something that I know that makes people feel uncomfortable for a lot of different reasons. But the reason why I share that is because a lot of people were uncomfortable that I was allowing them to come. And by allowing, all I was doing was saying, if you want to find a place for community where you feel cared for, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to feel that? I mean, I know I did. And so unfortunately, some people were upset, and it got to a place to where one member, as specific but also as broad as I can be, it went from being a demand that I publicly from the pulpit called them out by name and asked them to leave, to I quickly started getting shoved. Next thing you know, I was assaulted. And that was a moment of like two things were going on. One, I couldn't believe it was happening because I'm the kid that had never even been in like a fight or anything before, because like I was so afraid to like throw a punch, to all of a sudden like I'm in the closest to a fight I'd ever been, and not trying. I'm just like feeling super uncomfortable. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then simultaneously feeling like, am I going to hit someone back? I don't want to, but like, I don't know what to do because I feel threatened, and this is like a fight or flight. And apparently I have more fight in me than I thought I did. But what's also, you can't really run away when you're pushed into a corner. But, so that was a big moment where like it freaking shook me, because it's one thing to get yelled at. It's another to get screamed at. But then to all of a sudden to have not only your personal space, your bubble broken, but like you get touched. You know what I'm saying? Like, it became very overwhelming for both from like a respect standpoint, but from also just you're willing to physically cause me harm in order to emotionally cause these other people harm. And it really, really broke my spirit. Not because I was surprised. That's the part that was sad. I wasn't surprised. But I don't know, just that it actually happened. It's one thing, you see it constantly, but then when you're faced with it, it's a whole other level of reality. So, unfortunately, that began the beginning of, although there were great moments where I deeply cherished many of the relationships I had, there were also some really, really toxic moments where I multiple times got cursed at. I had text, I had letters saying horrific things about me. I had people that would call me boy. I'd have people that get in my face and start saying it, like literally seconds after I'd finished a sermon, would get in my face and say, do your damn job better. Like, it became more and more hostile. And then all of a sudden again, I'm averaging like 2 hours of sleep. I'm losing weight. I am constantly sick from just stress and literally not feeling the only place I can stay in that I'm somewhat safe is in this parsonage that I'm living in. But even that, it felt like I'm in a box that's not mine. Mm-hmm. Like, this is my safe spot, but it's also not my property. And so it felt like I had no safe place to go unless I left the town, or really more than just a town. And then the final straw was after painful thing after painful thing, when I had heard that pretty much behind our backs, they had been referring to Kate as a whore for about 6 months. It's really because we're at this like event where a lot of people were in bathing suits and everything, and Kate wore a t-shirt, and Kate wore, when I say athletic shorts, I don't mean like short athletic shorts, running shorts. I mean to her knees athletic shorts. And everyone else is in bathing suits, but God forbid it's 97 degrees outside, it's 120% humidity, and she wore athletic shorts. And that was the part where Kate found out before I did. She overheard it, and when I walked in to her crying, that was the moment where I was done. And I said, there's so much about this community and so much about the people that I deeply, deeply care for, but there's a point to where you can't continue to give unconditionally to everyone else and sacrifice yourself and sacrifice the people that's closest to your life. Because often that's who ends up being required to sacrifice. And I didn't want to have to, I couldn't handle it, but I especially didn't. Again, it's not many spouses can feel like you have to be taken to work and you're held to certain standards for things that have nothing to do with you. So I left. And it was heartbreaking for a lot of reasons. And I didn't know what I was doing. And to leave also meant I was saying goodbye to my health insurance and my home. And I literally asked my mom, could we move in with her? And I love my mom, but I mean, even she was like, it must be bad if you're asking me to do this because I do like my space. So we're at a place to where I was able to find a job and move out. But to do so, I took like a 65% pay cut. That's not easy. Even if I live in the South where things are cheaper, it's still not easy. And so I get this job working for a mental health agency, working with at-risk kids to support them, help teach them who've gone through trauma that I can never even imagine and who show bravery and courage in a way that is so moving. And I was there to be a support to them, go to court with them when they're dealing with things that have happened in the past, like help them process and think, how can we do something different? It was an amazing thing. I loved it. However, and again, this is where I have to be somewhat cautious, there started to be things going on in the organization that made me feel, I guess, icky is the best way of saying it.
It's a beautiful term to use.
Of just some things that felt like, again, just there was injustice going on and people were being taken advantage of, people that I loved that didn't deserve it. And so I started asking questions. People didn't like that I asked questions. And I started finding out more answers that made me even more uncomfortable. And so I reported it to the state because I wasn't going to let people who had so little have the only thing left that had be taken from them. And that was to help get the care that they needed. And so I resigned because they were not happy that I reported and I started getting that verbal abuse and I started getting like all these like horrible type of stuff. I would walk into a room and like everyone would look and scoff at me and would leave. Like really weird. Like, is this an episode of Degrassi? Like why is this happening to me? And I didn't want to work in a place to where, so I'm going to use a word that I think that all of us here are mortified by, but I didn't want to work in a place that worked with children and youth who had been through so much that we're going to use the R word for them.
No.
And I would say stuff and they didn't like that. I'd say stuff, but I was like, we can't, are you kidding me? And so I left and good news is, the state has come in and unfortunately it was actually significantly worse than I imagined, but they have ended all of the stuff and unfortunately a lot of the service had to go away, but the good news is people aren't being taken advantage of, which is good. But so now I'm in a place to where this is 3 toxic environments in a row. 2 of them being within like less than a year of each other. And when I mean less than a year, a combined total from the first experience to the second experience, like 11 months. And all of a sudden, like, I'm dealing more and more with residual panic attacks, residual pain, residual just hurt to where, as a person that faith is important to me, and a faith that includes, and a faith that draws people together, I'm at a place, and I have been for the last year, to where I can't even go inside of a church because every time I do, I start hyperventilating. My heart starts racing. I start like feeling woozy. I start crying. It's one of those things every time because everywhere I look, it reminds me of something that someone said. It reminds me of a way I got yelled at. It reminds me of the way I got shoved. It reminds me of the way I've got cursed at, like all these different types of stuff. And so for me, the thing that when I reflect back, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast was, how can I find a way to use my pain in a way that can both help me process, while also, if I can vocalize some of the things that have happened to me, I hope that people know that there are others out there who experience pain, hurt, violence as well, and we can get through it together, you know? Specifically, we don't talk much about religion, but I think the thing that I really am sad that I had to experience it, but I'm also really grateful for, is I feel like it's taught me how to experience empathy in a new way. Compassion in a new way, because although it's not the same, and I know this is kind of getting to a different conversation that more just like that talks about you, Josh, but like I at least have a glimpse now into what it's like to be sincerely fearful to walk into a place of worship and have a longing to be there for what it represents, but a fear of not feeling safe. And I feel if that's a small way that I can have used, if I can go from being one that has had so much experience in being privileged in my life and many times not knowing it, instead of using it in a way of being upset and saying like, don't say I'm privileged, instead of using it as a way of, my eyes have now been opened to a new level. And so I hope that I can be more caring and more supportive to other people. The thing that me and Steven, like we've said multiple times before, and I still joke, is like, I want everyone at one point or another to have been like a really, really fat kid or a really, really skinny kid. Mm-hmm. Because once you've gone through that level of insecurity, it teaches you how to be a more compassionate person. And I know that's the case, you know, for me, Steven. I don't know about for you, Josh, but like, yeah, it's something where, I guess to kind of wrap up, because I've been talking for a really long time, at the end of the day, the reason why I wanted to wait a while before I shared was I wanted people to know what my heart was, and to know that I still deeply care about religion. I care about what it stands for, and I'm still working through that myself. And I'm in a place where I have, just because people have acted very, very, how do I even say it? I was going to say just,
shitty is the word.
I was going to say just like in an unfortunate, hurtful, damaging way, that I hope, I don't know, I still, the thing that got me in there in the first place, and even though for me it comes from a place of religion, for many others share the same values from different sources, I still have a lot of optimism and hope that we can create communities like our best friends group. We can find places in the world where we refuse to participate in the toxic environment of drama, in name calling, in taking our insecurity and pain and then projecting it onto someone else, and if I'm going to feel it, they're going to feel it. And instead be a place of vulnerability and say, at the end of the day, I sincerely believe in the different types of work I've been in. We are all, no matter how old we are, insecure middle school kids that don't know how to process things. And so often we just really, really mess it up. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that is in a nutshell the things that, not that I've been afraid to share, but I wanted to give enough space because the situation and some environments have caused me and my wife significant pain. One doesn't mean that I look back with nothing but hate. I still value and cherish some of the relationships deeply from that and have so much respect for them and the type of way that they care for people in this world. And also just the fear of like, there's legality, there's other people's stories. There's always another side of the story. I don't want it to feel like I'm shit talking people, but I also want to be open and share. There's a reason why. This is what I've been going through, and the good news is I'm finally in a good place. I'm in a really healthy work environment now. It's not anything related to the helping profession because I had to take a break. I joked with a lot of people at the beginning, and when I was trying to find a different place, I said I am such a cheap day right now because my standards for a job is I don't want it to end in assault or fraud, and and it's super disappointing that that's the level of standard that I had. But I'm finally in a place where things are starting to go well in between work and family and community, like our podcasting community. I'm starting to feel better again, but it's still something where I think the main thing for me, and I keep saying I'm going to end and then I don't, but I've just realized that you'll never get over pain. You'll never get over grief. There's an author, his name is C.S. Lewis, and he talks about like loss of like a loved one, for example, as you've had a limb amputated, but you still feel it constantly there.
Phantom limb.
And I think that with any type of trauma, any type of pain, whether it's from childhood, whether it's from something that's happened at work, whether it's family, whether it's a combination of all of them, I think instead of just saying there's a point where I'm going to get over it, instead it's something of no, this has created a wound in your life that even if it heals, it will still be there. And if anything, I don't want to forget that time because I feel like I've been able to learn so much more about myself, about the people who are in my life that I know care,
right.
And where I have places of safety, how to listen to my body when I'm ignoring it, but I'm shutting down and I'm not getting sleep, I'm not eating, I'm not, and eventually just saying, no, the body is telling you what needs to be done. I feel like all of these things have taught me how to try and live a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I can kind of end it with that. I know that was a whole lot, but that's the reason why, for better and for worse, I am who I am. Is that a decent way of ending?
Yeah, that's it. That's the Chris Grimmett origin story that everybody's been so curious about for so long. You're a very Batman-like character. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I know that's not an easy conversation to have.
Yeah, but I'm grateful to be able to. It's not easy to relive pain, but when you can be in an environment where it feels safe, it makes it easier to talk about it. And hey, I got through it without crying this time. So can I just say, like, one other like, for me and Steven are all about Brene Brown. If you never heard who Brene Brown is, please go and I mean Josh knows her too.
Yes,
she's an amazing author and has more wisdom than any of us combined probably. And her big focus is how shame has so much power over us. And the only way that shame is able to lose its power is through vulnerability. Now, the problem is when you're vulnerable, a lot of times you can be taken advantage of, which is what happened with me in many situations. But when you find a place like I found with y'all here, it's amazing how much being able to be transparent, like every time you tell the story, more weight gets taken off. And it doesn't make it necessarily an enjoyable thing to think about, but it loses the deep pain. You know what I'm saying? It feels like healing can really start to happen. So I just I hope if nothing else, people can take away from, find people in your life that you can be open, because don't let shame, don't let trauma and insecurity and pain hold power over you, because when you speak it into existence, it stops. Yeah, you start noticing healing. At least that's been for me, and that's what this podcast has been.
Yeah.
So
Me
it's
too.
free therapy. Thank you for me not having to pay for counseling anymore, because that's a whole lot of money.
Me too. Well, that's awesome. And I'm going to do one of these at some point, because I've never told everything on
Sure.
Is This Adulting. Anyone who's heard me on the peripheral heard that episode, but I've never actually talked fully about it on this show. So I will do one of these eventually. We're going to go back to some guests and listeners, but I'll be around eventually and tell that story. So we just want to remind listeners one more time that if you are in need of help coping with mental illness, or you're going through a tough time, you're not alone. Please reach out to a mental health professional, or if you're in crisis, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK.
And if you're not in crisis, you can call them too. That's what's great about it.
Yeah, they're awesome. You can just call and talk if you need to talk. And I've actually done that, and they're great people. So definitely check that out. We're going to continue this conversation as an exclusive episode for our supporters at the $5 level or more on Patreon. So we're going to go do that over on Patreon. And believe it or not, you will hear Josh Hallmark speak. Because it hasn't happened much.
It's a true miracle.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, we wanted to let you talk, so now we're going to talk at you.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
It's going to be great. So if you want to check that out, patreon.com/isthisadulting, and $5 or more, and it's going to be a fun conversation. So thanks for listening, best friends, and we'll see you Thursday.